We've been watching this developing story out of Bahrain today where riot police and soldiers violently clashed with protesters. At least 6 people were killed. Bahrain is just one of the hotspots on the Mideast map these days that the U.S. is watching very closely. Joining me here in Washington is one of the leading experts on the Middle East. That's Aaron David Miller, public policy fellow at the Woodrow Wilson. Goodness gracious, I am tongue-tied this Wednesday.
Our only PhD president, by the way, which is why there's an institute named for him.
Well, and at University of Virginia, where he studied, the foreign policy school is named after it. I'm a grad, so I can claim that. Anyhow, Mr. Miller, I want to get your read here on what is actually happening in Bahrain right now, because we have 1,000 Saudi soldiers on the ground. We've got the U.S. Pentagon saying non-essential military personnel should probably leave. What's the reality? How do you read it?
I mean, I think you've got conflicts within conflicts. Within the royal family or the ruling family, you've got those, the crown prince, who probably want to see this resolved through dialogue and some effort at reform, while the prime minister, who many believe was the one who instigated the Saudi entry, wants a more hardline conservative policy. Among the Shia community, 70% of the population, which makes this unique with respect to Egypt or Libya or frankly anywhere else with the exception of Iraq where these changes are taking place, you've got divisions between traditional Shia parties that are probably want to see this resolved more peacefully, and others who want to raise the ante. So you have conflicts within conflicts, and then of course you have 3 external actors: the Saudis, who are afraid and angry, afraid of their own Shia community in the eastern provinces, angry at the United States for our seeming acquiescence in these pro-democratic forces, and the Iranians, all of whom want to make hay. So even if they put this back in the box, this is a long movie, and it's not going to have a happy ending.
It sounds like, I mean, it's a small country in such a key area for the transmission of oil, for that buttress against Iranian influence, so many say. Do you really buy that the United States did not have a voice in the decision for Saudi troops to step into Bahrain?
I think they had a voice. I think the voice probably urged caution rather than upping the ante. I mean, any rational person looking at the situation is not going to believe that 1,000 Saudi forces, in addition to the 15,000 regular military forces the Bahrainis have, are going to tip the balance. This is a signal, a signal of things to come if things don't quiet down on the ground, and I suspect they're not going to quiet down.
In Libya, it seems like the possibility of a no-fly zone is virtually nil at this point. What happens with U.S. foreign policy in the region if, in this wave of the so-called Arab Spring, this movement towards democratic reform, the U.S. doesn't take a stand? Well,
we're taking a stand, it's just we're not in charge. This isn't our story. And we're responding and reacting. The good news is it's not our story. The good news is that these changes in Egypt, Tunisia, to some degree in Libya and Bahrain, are internal, legitimate, authentic forces, and they bode well over the long term.
And yet the president did say it was time for Gaddafi to leave. If he doesn't, what happens?
Well, the gap between what we say and what we do is going to be huge.
Well, it's been the way for a long time.
And it's going to devour American credibility. But you have to weigh that against the other alternative, which is a no-fly zone that will not stop the conflict and that will ultimately require much more interventionist steps on the part of the United States, which could end up having us own yet another Arab Muslim country. And that, frankly, Arab patience for that will wear thin, however much they may support in principle the Arab League and no-fly zone. So we have to be very tricky. Look, it's a very difficult situation to watch, particularly if you are rhetoric. When you talk about people being slaughtered and then America sits on the sidelines, it's a problem.
Yeah, a rebel telling one of our Bloomberg reporters inside of Libya he estimated 15,000 people perhaps killed in these clashes. Spokesperson for one of the rebel forces telling us that.
It's a huge problem, but it has to be weighed against the alternative, a slippery slope in which the United States ends up not just multilaterally participating in a no-fly zone, but actually taking military steps of its own, which could lead to intervention.
What does $2 billion more in aid to Egypt, already one of the top recipients of foreign aid from this country, do for U.S. credibility?
Well, it's comparative advantage, frankly. It's the one area in which we can, in fact, make a contribution. The Egyptians want it, unlike democracy assistance from us, which they probably do not. And it's a way to demonstrate that, in effect, we aren't just talking about supporting transformation in the Arab world. We're actually going to do something about it. So I think of all the things we could do, civil society, more rhetoric. This actually would be the most useful and welcome by the Egyptians.
You don't think that Libya could further destabilize Egypt in that you see 1 million people crossing the border into Egypt from Libya? You see further job loss?
I think those pressures are significant, but no, I don't think Libya is capable of destabilizing Egypt. Gaddafi's survival is going to be a problem, but it will be contained.
Aaron Miller, always great speaking to you.
It's a pleasure.
Great talking to you face to face instead of on a remote.
Great to see you, Mike.